How we got the shot. It's photo recipes with the Chopstick, guys. And we're here today to tell you a little bit about how we, or in this case, how I got the shot. Mark's here to just be my little sidekick.
Or to be a sidekick, you got to learn the ropes.
That's right. I'm excited to find out how you created this image. So
we're going to just go through an image that I created not too long ago and kind of share with you how that image came about, what kind of equipment we used, how we actually put it into place, and what happened with the final result. So I had this dream of doing this shot for years, right?
was it something you've seen before, or was it just something you came
I
up with?
saw someone in a lake one time used a frame, but they just held it up and kind of dipped it in the water. I wanted to actually be able to float a frame, have my model in the lake underneath the frame, right? So it looks like this frame is almost superimposed. I mean, when you look at this final picture,
It looks like the lake is the wall. And
Yeah. so this is the picture that we're gonna look at and kind of tear apart today to see how it's all put together. But first, let's kind of talk about what I used to take this picture.
Yeah, tell me about the gear that you use.
So
Camera.
first thing I want to say though, before I even get into the gear, this day we had planned for a couple weeks, and our friend Corey, we had her out, talked her through what we were going to do. I said, is it okay if I float you in the water? Luckily, the water was about 60 degrees, so it wasn't freezing. It wasn't.
This was like 2 months ago. It
Yeah.
was still a little bit summertime.
And she's like, that's cool. We'll play around with that. The problem is I didn't account for the amount of wind we would have that day. The wind was going at 48 miles an hour, and it was really windy and cold that day.
So what you're saying is not all photos look like this.
No. In fact, I'm going to show you in a little bit of what we were getting most of the time, but Corey's a trooper. So anyways, my equipment that I used. So shoot Nikon. This was shot with a Nikon Z8, and shot with a 24-70 lens. And so most of these I shot at 2.8, fast shutter speed, just trying to get the perfect exposure, right? We had a lot of issues with waves coming in. We'll get to that in a second. Lighting wise, kept it real simple. This was shot with an FJ200, a Westcott 200 watt light using an Octa Small. So it's a 24-inch small softbox on a pole.
So what was the reason you chose the 200 over the 400?
Well, I knew that my daughter was actually assisting me that day.
Okay.
And so, she's a little peanut. She's small, right?
Okay.
She's 25 years old, but she's not, a body lifter, a bodybuilder. So I didn't want her to have to hold an FJ400 on the pole because this had to be handheld, right? Because of the water issues and the wind. Used an Octa Small because I wanted to be able to just have her hold that too, because I know if any kind of wind, you have a big
it's a giant sail.
that thing just starts taking off. So that was my main reason, right? The FJ200 has plenty of power.
Plenty.
If you're just doing one person, right? If I'm shooting a group, I'm not going to use that FJ200. I use my 400. But if I'm shooting...
So if it was a still day, there was a chance you might have used your bigger light, but
Probably not.
okay.
Just because of her having the handle.
Okay, perfect.
Right? Because I knew I was going to be out there for an hour in the water. Also, if she happened to drop it, it's easier to grab that quick than an FJ400, which gets off balance really
Yeah,
quick.
I just wanted to clarify that because I know a lot of people, they always question, like, why'd you choose this light over this one? And if it's just the ease of use and size, perfect.
And so I took my monopod, mounted that to that, and so she could handle that really easy. It was lightweight and super easy to control. Again, because the wind is almost 50 miles an hour. I mean, it was really, really windy. Like she was having a hard time even with that. So that's what we ended up doing. So here's the key, right? The main piece of equipment. I had to be able to have a frame. First of all, finding a frame that would work. I finally found this at a thrift store. This is a $5 frame.
Ooh, nice.
Right? Trying to find a frame that was the right size. I needed a 16 by 20, so she would fit in there fine.
Okay.
Right? Anything smaller or narrower, it wouldn't work for what I saw in my head. So once I got this, I picked up the frame at the thrift store, $5, like found the perfect frame. Then I'm like, will that frame actually float? Because Corey was going to be floating in the water. Her butt is barely touching. We're in the lake, so her butt is barely touching the water, but the waves are coming in and out. So I knew that she wasn't going to
keeping herself up.
She wasn't going to be able to hang on to the frame, right? So how do I float the frame over her where she still has something to hang on to so she can keep it in place? So what I devised was, here's my frame, right? So there we go, was a floating frame. So if you can see the back of this thing, I took a pool noodle.
Yep, you just cut it
Cut it in half, and then took hot glue and glued it right around the interior of this frame. What that allowed it to do, and I tested it on the pool before I went, it floated perfectly.
Yeah.
So then Corey had a place to hang on to each one of these pool noodles.
So she could hide her fingers behind it.
She could hide her fingers. See, if you look at the picture back that's up on the screen, you can see that her hands are hidden because she's hanging on the pool noodle.
Yeah. Nice.
That made her so much more comfortable being able to do this. So she felt like, okay, I have something to kind of brace myself against. And by doing that, it solved that problem. So here's the big problem was if we look at this picture now, this is what a lot of my pictures look like. Corey, and I got to give her huge props because she took so much water up the nose that day. I mean, it was unbelievable how much water she had. So I was positioned for the shot. I'll get that one off so we don't have to stare with that picture. But I actually had my 6 foot tall ladder in the water. Mm-hmm. I stood on top of that ladder and shot down.
Straight down.
Now, we had waves that were coming in every 5 seconds at about 2 feet. So it was extremely difficult to capture the point where the frame wasn't skewed, where that she was feeling comfortable, that her head was out of the water. I mean, I buried the girl so many times. It was, she again was a big trooper, but we had just water pouring over the top of her head. And luckily, by being up there, and I was a little worried, just, am I going to fall over? But we didn't. And we captured just incredibly cool pictures out there at the lake. All right, so I lit this picture pretty flat on purpose, right? Because I didn't want to have a lot of contrast in it. I wanted the focus to be on her face, just popping out of the water in the frame, right? If I would have shot it very dramatic, maybe I would have lost some of that. So I think I succeeded. I actually wanted to be a little washed out because, again, just the whole water effect. So the light was pretty, it was a little to her left, but pretty much right over her. I should say it was actually to her right, my left.
Just enough out of the frame. So
just enough out of the frame so I could shoot straight down. So I didn't get, any kind of specular highlights necessarily in the eyes because it was just straight on. But I think it succeeded well. I wanted to make sure that I captured a little bit of that light coming on the top of her head. Yeah. So I think one of the hardest things that I came up with actually in the shooting of it, other than trying to balance on the top of the ladder when it was windy and the waves are coming in, was getting my angle of my camera, the physical angle.
It's just like shooting a tall building. You get that
so anytime
perspective where things start getting wonky.
Yeah, exactly. So, that kind of angle versus up and down, like things get really crazy. And I was shooting pretty close to her. I was, 5 feet above her.
Yep.
And like trying to get your angle where that frame is perfectly straight. I didn't care if she was straight. In fact, I wanted her to be a little crooked, but the frame had to be perfectly straight. And that was pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
So I had the grid lines on my camera on the inside display setup so I could actually make sure that I kept that within the frame. If you don't have grid lines turned on in your camera, you should do that. I know that most cameras nowadays have that ability to do a grid overlay.
Yeah, so anytime they're using any type of structure, you can get those things lined up.
Super important. So, I think I came up with some good shots. In fact, right now we can just, while we're finishing this up, roll a bunch of the other shots we got of this day. I think...
I think this is an extremely creative image. I think this is one of those ones that gets everybody excited about, wanting to try something new. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that, you found some problems with floating that frame. You had to overcome it. And man, I challenge everybody. You get an idea in your head. This is what photography is really about. It's about challenging yourself, having fun, maybe finding an image you've seen in your head or you've seen online and go, how can I do it different or better?
Yep.
And in working on doing that. And it's so rewarding.
One of the best things to do, this will be my recommendation. If you get one thing out of this video, it's go onto Pinterest and just do a search for whatever your brain is thinking about. If it's, floating a girl in a lake behind a frame, search that, see what you come up with, right? I did that. There was a few, like the one that I saw, but it wasn't a great picture. But like you start, just gather ideas. If you're laying in bed one night, you can't fall asleep, get up.
Yeah.
Do a search, right? Figure out, I want to make sure that I can take a picture of, a girl in a red dress in front of a blue car, whatever it might be.
Yep.
Search it and then go out and do that. Because if you go out and do this stuff, like I didn't get paid to do this shoot.
Right? No, that was just something.
This was something that I
creatively you needed to do for yourself.
Right? And that's how we get better as photographers. Is having fun. You know, we were talking about that the other day. That we love the times that we're not doing a job.
No,
that we just go out and we have fun.
Yep.
I learned so much on this shoot that I can take to every job that we do.
Yeah.
So go ahead, learn. Always be learning. Really, really important.